Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Balava Girivanadari Gopijana Gopijana Balava Girivanadari Jasodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Jasodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Chamuniti Ravanatari Chamuniti Ravanatari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Balava Girivanadari Gopijana Balava Jasodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Chamunati Ravanatari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Bo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bo Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pari Vijayakachaya Satyachisham. His Divine Grace Abhay Charan Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON Founder Chaya Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Karash Vind Ki. Nam Charshal Haridas Thakur Ki. Prem Shigho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki. Sheshi Radhakrishna Gogopinath Shamakunda Radhakunda Gita Govardhan Ki. Vrindavan Dham Ki. Mathura Dham Ki. Dwarka Dham Ki. Navadip Dham Ki. Jagannathpuri Dham Ki. Jamuna Mai Ki. Ganga Mai Ki. Tulsi Maharani Ki. Bhakti Devi Ki. Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki. All glories to some of the devotees. All glories to some of the devotees. All glories to some of the devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. I have a quick question. I forgot the folder that I wanted that had the printout of what I wanted to read. Now I could get it on my phone, but it'll take to... Does anyone here know where my apartment is? Tapas. And you have a car too, don't you? Can you go like the wind? And what do you need? You've got your own car. And there's a blue folder. You know, there's my desk, there's that seat. There's a blue folder, should be right there. If it's not there, it'll be over on the table by that little kitchen. Blue folder, sky blue. Go like Narada Muni. Thank you very much, Tapas. Well, that came in handy. They're all asleep. They're all drunk and asleep right now. So I'm not too worried about it. And the other thing is, to tell you the truth, the guy that lives on this side is a very nice person. And he likes Krishna consciousness. He loves prasadam. And he's usually up now. No, they don't. What are they going to steal? You know, what do I have? You know, so I'm not too worried about it. Got my computer. Okay, so Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Krishna Swadamo Bhagate Damaganadi Bisaha Kalau Nasadisham Misha Parano Ko Nandodata Narayana Namaskritchandanam Chaivam Narotama Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat. The Bhagavatam is Brinda's son. It is arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna, accompanied with knowledge, religion, etc. Persons who have lost their vision to the dense darkness of the age of Kali shall get light out of this Purana. Before beginning our study of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should first offer respects to the personality of Godhead Narayan, the Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, the goddess of learning Mother Saraswati, the author Srila Vyasadeva, and my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada. So we are on a series of verses, and let's see if I can find them. We're in the 5th canto, we're in chapter 24, and we left off on verse 3, as I recall. So there's a number of verses without purports, and some have small purports. So I'm going to read up to the verse we're going to talk about, and then I'll go back and say something about these short purports. Is that okay? That's what we're going to do. And because I'll say the first one, the Sanskrit, just for auspiciousness, but it's all text. Yeah, there it is. Tato dastat siddha charana vidyadaranam sadanam tava matra eva. Below Rahu, by 10,000 yojanas, 80,000 miles, are the planets known as the Siddha Loka, Charna Loka, and Vidyadhara Loka. Purport. It is said that the residents of Siddha Loka being naturally endowed with the power of yogis, can go from one planet to another by their natural mystic powers without using airplanes or similar machines. Now, somehow or other, well, I guess we'll have to do it via the other one. Hold on a sec, Prabhus. Oh, do you have the book? Does anyone have a book? There is. Do you mind? Anyway, I'm sorry to make you get up. But I forgot about the fact there's actually books. Make it a little easier. Just go and grab that book, fast as you can. Hey, he'll be fine. I'll give it back. I'm in his service. Okay. So now, beneath Vidyadhara Loka and Charna Loka and Siddha Loka, in the sky called Antariksha, are the places of enjoyment for the yakshas, rakshasas, pisachas, ghosts, and so on. Antariksha extends as far as the wind blows, and the clouds float in the sky. Above this, there is no more air. Translation for the next, verse 6. Below the abodes of the yakshas, we're going down. Different planetary systems, because there's 14 planetary systems, 7 up, 7 down, like that. So we're going down. Below the abodes of the yakshas and the rakshasas, by a distance of 100 yojanas, 800 miles, is planet Earth. Whoops, sorry about that. Now we're going to go down. Its upper limits extend as high as swans, hawks, eagles, and similar large birds can fly. Some eagles, I Googled it last night, can fly up to, what is it? 36,000 feet. Yeah. And cranes and swans. There's a type of, it's a whooping swan. It can fly that high. Yeah. And here we have it in the Bhagavatam before they, just as, because it's in, well, I'll just say it. You know, it describes in the Bhagavatam the Paramahansa, which is swan, is another name for a swan. And it says that just as a swan can separate, if you mix milk and water, the swan can separate the milk from the water. And the analogy is similarly a saintly person can extract all the illusion and useless and temporary and extract the eternal, that which is of real value. Well, it's a sweet analogy, but come on, swan, milk, water, how is it possible? We have a docent, who, you know, someone who, a volunteer at the, what is it, the Balboa Zoo with San Diego Zoo. Yes, there's a type of an African swan that has an enzyme in its mouth and curdles the milk, spits out the water, and swallows the milk. I forget that it's a South African white swan or something like that, but so if it's in the Bhagavatam, it's true. Just how is it true? Okay, so my dear king, beneath this earth are 7 other planets known as Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, and Patala. I have already explained the situation of the planetary systems of Earth. The width and length of the 7 lower planetary systems are calculated to be exactly the same as those of the Earth. Okay, this is the last one. In these 7 planetary systems, which are known as the subterranean heavens, Bilaswarga, there are very beautiful homes, gardens, places of sense enjoyment, which are even more opulent than those of the higher planets, because the demons have a very high standard of sensual pleasure, wealth, and influence. Most of the residents of these planets, who are known as Daityas, Danavas, and Nagas, live as householders. Their wives, children, friends, and society are fully engaged in illusory material happiness. The sense enjoyment of the demigods is sometimes disturbed, but the residents of these planets enjoy life without disturbances. Thus, they are understood to be very attached to illusory happiness. And Prabhupada's purport. According to the statement of Prahlad Maharaj, material enjoyment is Maya Sukha, illusory enjoyment. A Vaishnav is full of anxieties. Wait till I finish the sentence. Full of anxieties? What? For the deliverance of all living entities from such false enjoyment. Devotee has no anxiety for himself. Prahlad Maharaj says, Maya Sukhaya Baram Udavato Vimuda. These fools, Vimudas, not just an ordinary fool, Vimuda means a big fool, are engaged in material happiness, which is surely temporary. Whether in the heavenly planets, the lower planets, or on the earthly planet, people are engrossed in temporary material happiness, forgetting that in due course of time, they have to change their bodies according to the material laws and suffer the repetition of birth, death, old age, and disease. Not caring what will happen in the next birth, gross materialist, excelente. Thank you very much, Tapas. He's not even winded. Not caring for what happens in the next birth, the gross materialists are simply busy enjoying during the present short span of life. A Vaishnava is always anxious to give all such bewildered materialists the real happiness of spiritual bliss. Om Aganatam Randasya Gyanagana Salakaya Jakshusham Latangena Tazarishi Gurave Namaha. Can you put this back on the stand there? Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, well. The world is shifting. Thanks. Now you're off the hook. It's done. Okay. Just somehow there, by Dravita's mystic power. Om Aganatam Gyanagena Salakaya Jakshusham Latangena Tazarishi Gurave Namaha. So just as a quick refresh, my tech support is not there we go. You know, all this is quite astounding. You know, the thing is, if you think about it, we can't even find our car keys. I can't remember my folder. We can't find our way back from Walmart without a GPS, And we're in a tiny corner of the Milky Way, which is a tiny corner of creation. And we're here for a flash. This whole thing, the whole existence, is one exhalation of Mahavishnu. Krishna's form is and we're thinking, well, that doesn't make sense to me. What about, well, I think, who are we and what do we know? And we think, well, wait, that didn't mean it. So there needs to be a healthy humility when approaching the Srimad Bhagavatam. But even given that, one has to accept the premise. It's a classic example. I'm going to use it again. Suppose Jamunajiva and I, we're going to meet downtown. And tomorrow, Monday, at 8 a.m. sharp, he's a punctual guy, he's together. We're going to meet at 8 o'clock. And to make it completely clear, in the southwest corner of the intersection of Main and 5th. Pretty clear, right? And Jamunajivan, he's going to be there on time. He's together. He's waiting. The next day, Monday, he's waiting. Thinks, Swamiji, okay, He arrives early, he waits. No Swami. So he's got things to do. So he waits till 8:30. Thinks, well, something must have happened. So he takes off. Next day, Tuesday, we meet here at the temple. And given my nature, I say, Jamunajivan, where were you? He says, Maharaj, with all due respects, I was there. Southwest corner, 8 o'clock. So how is it possible? Axiomatically, it's a fact that he was on the southwest corner of whatever, 5th and Main. I was on the southwest corner. Exact same time, exact same place. I didn't see him, he didn't see me. And it wasn't that he was facing this way, I was facing this way, and we forgot to turn around, So other than Dravida, does anyone know how it's possible? Exactly so. As soon as on a two-dimensional plane of width and depth, okay, there we are, same place. As soon as you add the dimension of height, a third dimension, then I could be on the ground floor and he could be on the 5th floor. Two dimensions were the same place. Add another dimension, we don't even see each other. So, that's just common sense. And if we accept, which even modern physicists do, if we accept that it's a multi-dimensional universe, what to speak of what they say in the Bhagavatam, then there's all kinds of different dimensions. Well, that's, right now, if I were to take out my phone, I could be shopping on Amazon. You could be watching a ball game. Somebody else, Vaikuntha, he wouldn't be doing. He could be watching ISKCON television in Mayapur because he's missing Mayapur. All that is flying through this room, isn't it? There's all kinds. We used to remember when we used to have a funky speaker, and we used to get the police radio sometimes in the middle of Bhagavatam class because it'd pick up the signal. So all of that is flying. Everything that's on Netflix. I could cruise the Library of Congress. How many editions? I don't know how many books are in the library. It's all in this room right now. Just got to have the right device. Got to be tuned in. Got to cheat, and you got it. So it's like that in the universe. If you have the access code, if you have the qualification, if you have the adhikari, or the qualification, all that is here. And the great yogis and mystics, and those are on higher planets, it's all common sense for them. Easy. So it's not, if we just stretch our little pea brain that's locked into our Kali Yuga vision, thinking, well, when we can't even find our way out of a phone booth with a Boy Scout and a compass. So we have to, when we're reading these descriptions, we have to remember our actual position and the position of the Bhagavatam and these basic principles. Then it makes complete sense. So that was a preface. What's the one takeaway from all of this? Is that, they've got this idea that space is just vacant. That this, my favorite statement is when they always say, we didn't find, when they send their little beeper out to Venus or Mars or who knows where they actually went. But then they say, but there was no life as we know it. They always say that, life as we know it. What pregnant question is embedded in that statement? No life as we know it. What about life as we don't know it? Huh? There's bodies made out of fire. This body is basically made out of earth. It's 90% water, but it's, of the material elements, the Mahabhuta of this world. But there's bodies made of fire, bodies made of the mind. What happens when you're dreaming? People have nocturnal emission, men, from dreaming about a woman at night. Well, what's that all about? You're in a subtle body. That other thing is in a subtle body, and yet it has an immediate and physical reaction. There's all kinds of bodies, mental bodies, this body, ether body. So the fact of the matter is that instead of this, vast, empty, and we're the only inhabited planet, and we're the center of everything, and we're in a lonely universe. The world is, the creation is packed, stuffed, full of entities. You go to the Mariana Trench. The Mariana Trench is the deepest part of the ocean. It's 7, almost 8 miles deep. It's a far out place. It's because you got all the pressure from all the water on top of it. 7 miles down, all the water, all that pressure. There's no oxygen. It's got no light, and it's got all kinds of fissures that, gases from the center of the earth or who knows what are out. It's poison. It's poisonous. It's without light. It's under incredible pressure. You know what? It's teeming full of life. There's entities that live off the poisonous, noxious gas that would kill us in a second. That's where they get their nutrition. And one takeaway from this vast existence, all kinds of planets and entities and things flying in between, and it's a huge machine churning and moving, and that's reality. And here I am, Badrinarayan Swami, and I'm upset that I've lost my pen, or somebody dissed me, or whatever. So what? In the grand scheme of things, everything we're stewed and steamed and worried, and that which one of the qualities in Bhagavad Gita of knowledge is to keep in forefront the evils of birth, death, disease, and old age. That's what to be worried about. To be all this, what happened in this part of the world, or they always advertise all the news. Get it on your device. You'll be up to date. What happened on this little speck? Does it? We have to be practical. We have to know whether it's going to rain, or whatever it's going to. There's, but to know. That's the Vedic view, to step back and see this whole teeming creation of people going up, and it's like one of those chutes and ladders game. My kids used to play that when they were little. You step on a square and zip, all of a sudden you're down here, and you get on this and you get to go 15 steps up to another. So it's like everybody's flying around this universe, different bodies, different places. They're all in anxiety and hankering and lamenting. But it's all just a flash in the pan in a tiny corner of a vast populated universe. So if we keep things in perspective, what is my real business? What is my takeaway? What at the end of the day, what am I going to walk away with? And all I'm going to walk away is what I've done. What is my karma? What is my next birth going to be? And have I actually made advancement in spiritual? Have I actually made progress how to get out of this place? That's the only thing that really matters. So one of the values of the Bhagavatam describing all of this stuff is to give us, this is Vedic view. Like a telescope, everybody's played with this little telescope. You look at one way, everything becomes bigger, right? What happens when you swing it around? It's the same thing, simply seen from a different angle. You look at the big end, the little end, everything looks big, right? What happens when you swing it around and look at the other way? You ever do that as a kid? Everything is tiny, tiny. So you're looking at the same things, you're using the same instrument, it's just which angle you're looking at it from. And the whole picture changes. So in a similar fashion, it was neither big or small. It was right in the middle. It was distorted either way you looked at it. So the Vedic vision, how to look at this world, that there's asat, this body, this mind, all my attachments, all my anxieties, all my hankering. This world is the original been there and done that. When people become bored, I've been there, done that. We've been there, we've done that 1,000 times. Actually, unlimited times. So that's Vedic view. So wait a minute, why keep hacking at the same thing? Why going on the same merry-go-round? What is actually of value? What actually will solve my problems permanently? That's Vedic view. Okay, now I wanted to introduce you to a few friends. I promised I would. So, just for fun, it talks about the siddhas who can fly from one planet to another by mystic yoga without any need of any, United Airlines or anything. Prabhupada was in the LA airport. I was there. And Prabhupada was explaining that everything, whatever you know, he was talking to the reporters, whatever you know, whatever modern science knows, was already there in the Vedas. As an example here, Bhagavatam is 5,000 years old, spoken 5,000 years ago, written down by Vyasa. And even when I was first out and about meeting people as a devotee, they used to say the Bhagavatam was 2,500 years old. 2,000 years old, 2,500 years old. And this 5,000 is just... Then I remember they used to say it's 3,000 years old. They did further research. Then they were saying it's 35. Now they're saying 4,000 and maybe older. So we'll just take the... I'm talking academia, what they say, how old the... And they've shifted it in whatever that is, in 40 years, They've shifted from, maybe 2,000. They usually, it's a whole story, I don't want to get lost on it. But thousands of years ago, we accept 5,000 years ago, they're talking about there's an atmosphere, because it talks about after a certain point, what is it, the ionosphere, stratosphere? I think there's another one, isn't it? I don't know, Tropic of Cancer, I don't know what's going on out there. But the point is there's different layers of atmosphere around the Earth. And then after that, when you get into space, there's no air. That's the whole point. So in the same way, it's describing here 5,000 years ago, there's planet Earth and there's sky up. They call it sky, which air. It says there's air up to a certain. After which point there's no air. Now how? And I don't know where it is. Is it 10,000 miles? I mean, how high? I mean, I don't know what it is. Somebody can Google it. Where does the atmosphere stop and you're actually in space where there's no air?
Well, they had to go up to the Himalayas. They had to have air like 15,000.
Yeah, but there comes a point that, okay, here's the Earth, then there's the atmosphere around it, which the Vedas are calling air. Then you get into the point that you're out of the Earth's atmosphere, it becomes space. Because one of the definitions of space, there's no gravity, there's no air. So here, 5,000 years ago, it's describing that exact phenomena. Beyond a certain point, there's no more air, there's just space. How did they know that? How is it there in the Bhagavatam? I mean, how is it? I mean, there's no experiment. You can't go, even they were at the top of the Himalayas. You know, what did they do? So that's just a sidelight. But another thing I was thinking, I was speaking one time. I was in Detroit, and you know, different churches, different schools, you know, world religions classes. They got the Buddhist, they got the Muslim, they get a Hindu, they get a, you know. So they called us. We were the local Hindus, so they called us. Although we're not Hindu, but that's another word. So they called me. And I remember when I pulled up, I was with another devotee, we pulled up at it was the Catholic high school, and it was called Descent of the Holy Name, was the name of, I thought, well, this is going to be fun. I thought, okay, nice sign from Krishna. So they were asking, now, here was the classroom, and there was a nice little garden, and there was a statue of an angel. So they asked us, well, what's the difference between you, back to Siddhas, we'll get there in a second. What is the difference between your theology, your religion, and ours? And I said, well, actually, there's no difference in the ultimate issue, the essential points, if you boil it down, the same common denominator of love of God, service to God, like that. This is not our real home, like that, you know. And I said, but I'll give you an example. I said, if you look out the window, there's a statue of an angel, right? You all believe in angels. You know, it's a Catholic school. Oh, yeah, definitely. I said, but the Vedas, the Bhagavatam can tell you where those people live, the Siddha Loka, how you get there. They can explain the whole thing. You have a concept. Okay, there's angels, and they have wings, and they fly. Bhagavatam Gandharvas, they're called winged singers of heaven. They're musicians. There's a planet. They're all musicians. They have wings, and they can fly. So everything is there in the Bhagavatam, but in detail, in depth, in specificity? Yeah, in specifics of the thing. So I just thought that was interesting. 62 miles. Yeah, so, I mean, even with Acme Jet's shoes, no one's going to get up that high and figure out, oh, here's where the ether is, you know. It comes from this descending knowledge. Okay, so I wanted to read this, that I promised to introduce you some new friends. Now this is just, this is a sample. This is one section of the 14 planetary system. 14 planetary systems. Now in those systems, there's so many planets, and every planet has different types of entities. So this is excerpts from the Bhagavatam. It's short. The universe is divided into 14 regions. The earthly region, wherein human beings dwell, is called Burloka. Above this is Bhuvaloka, where the entities who are Antarikshasthana, denizens of outer space, and Madhyanasthana, denizens of the planets between earth and heaven, dwell. Included are the Yakshas, chief of whom is Kuvera, the treasure of the demigods, the Kinnaras and Kimpurusha, who looks combine human and animal features, like Garuda, like Hanuman. That's where they all live, you know. Kimpurusha actually means, Sariputta told me, in Sanskrit, what is it? Because it's half man, half, you know, what's that all about? So, where was I? Okay, Rakshasas, fearsome man-eaters with black magical powers. Vidyadharas, angelic beings who fly in the sky without vehicles. Gandharvas, celestial musicians who subtly inspire earthly musicians. Oh, I had my muse, Mozart, the whole thing pops into his head. He got help from an Apsara, or a Gandharva. Apsaras, lovely dancing girls who consort with the Gandharvas, and other handsome residents of heaven. Charanas and Siddhas, who are naturally endowed with all mystic powers. Ghosts, Pretas, Piyaschas, Putaganas, etc., and many other kinds of supernatural entities. Uragas, Patakas, Nishacharas, and he gives a whole list. So this is just a sample from the Bhagavatam. Kirtananda told me one time, Sariputta told me, I'll get back to Kirtananda, Sariputta told me, who knows, but I trust Sariputta, double PhD, Cornell University, tenured professor at 34 years old at Cornell, PhD in statistics, physics, theoretical physics and statistics. That's a pretty solid source, right? So Sariputta said, according to and it's explained in the Surya Siddhanta, it's described that within the Earth's atmosphere, between the Earth and the Moon, if you were to draw a circle where the Moon goes around the Earth, within that span, there's all kinds of subtle beings. And that's where these, you get the pictures of the UFOs and the little green men with the, cat eyes or whatever those. That's where all those people are hanging out. There's and they're generally negative. They generally have a negative effect on things. So that's just in that little band. There's subtle planets that we can't see, different dimensions, different places, like the example of, So there's a lot going on out there. But Kirtananda told me that Prabhupada was traveling in India, and he was staying at an old mansion, so life members, and they'd had it and been in their family for 300 years. So Kirtananda got the deities set up in one room. Prabhupada used to travel with little Radhakrishna deities. And he came into Prabhupada's room, and Prabhupada had his cane, and he was going along the baseboard, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And then he was going along, whatever you call this, between the ceiling and Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Kirtananda said, Prabhupada, what are you doing? He said, chasing out the ghosts. Just like you'd shoo out a cat or a bat or some bird, Prabhupada was on that lake and see what's, move on, So there's a lot going on in this world that we don't know. And we're in a little tiny, I don't think. So, but now here the thing is, so you can say that, not sophisticated Christians. There are intelligent, pious, learned Christians. But what you usually get, they say, you believe in many gods, and I read in the Vedas, because they taught them that in world religions. The Hindus have many gods, and and we're unique because we believe in one God, and that's why we're one God in Jesus. And if you don't believe it, you're going to burn in hell forever. Oh, that encourages me. But here's an interesting thing. I did a little research. I was thinking about it because there's different types of angels. We've just described and this is just, what I read was just scratching the surface of what's out there. This didn't even deal with the demigods and the devas and the tapaloka with the great yogis and rishis. I didn't even touch that. Or what to speak of the fifth canto hellish planets, which Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says will make the hair on the greatest hero like Hamlet stand on end. The fifth canto and what happens, where you get trained to become a hog, all the different things that happen. Oh, man. So I've only talked about a slice of it. But the fact of the matter is the Christians, and that's what I wanted to pass around. I'll pass this around in a second. They have there's all kinds of angels. They have a populated universe. And each of these is a category. Amongst those categories, there's many variations and multiple living entities in each of these categories. There are angels, cherubs, seraphims, archangels, thrones. And there's three different, what do they call it? Spheres. First sphere, second sphere, third sphere. There's also subsets called choirs of angels. Like 3 times 3 is 9, 9 times 9 is 81. You take these different types of angels, and then you put them in the different spheres, as they're called. And then amongst these, there's different changes and variations among a particular type. They're called choirs. I mean, you've got unlimited. And it happens to be the ascension of the Virgin Mary. But if you look up, it's a picture of a painting. You can take it, pass it around. This is just, it's the 3 different levels and the different angels, different types of angels. It's pretty crowded up there, huh? So the idea that, we've got this concept and it's just anthropomorphic or it's just sentiment or it's fairyland. First off, anyway, that's the case. We're not alone. And when the Christians tell you, you've got all these, hodgepodge, mumbo jumbo, they've got the same thing. If you go to a fine hotel, there's supposed to be 33 million demigods, not types, but total filling up all the categories, 33 million demigods. If you go to a fine hotel, Winston Churchill said, when I die, I don't want to go to heaven. I want to go to Claridge's. It was considered at the time the best hotel in the world. It's like you got the guy with the cigar, and immediately someone's there to catch the ash, So, and it's well organized. Everything's spotlessly clean. It's well organized. Now, how this whole universe, how is it going on? God is, somebody sent me a picture. And it said, the answer to unanswered prayers. You make a prayer and there's no answer, Of course, Krishna answers in his own way with his own purpose and his own design. That's another thing. But the picture is it shows it's God at his desk, and he's perplexed, trying to manage everything. He's trying to run and he's got his prayers, and he's got an inbox and outbox. And if you get an inbox, maybe you look at your outbox in a way, even in in email, something automatically goes to a spam cell, and you missed it. So God's up there trying to manage everything and run everything. Of course, he can do it. That's not an issue. But, this one slipped by. It was in my spam box. Oh, sorry, you got hit by that truck and you were praying, please save me. Well, I just missed that one, You're going to miss a few, right? So it's just ridiculous. The fact of the matter is that Krishna's got everything covered. Everything expanded, and he's simply, Prabhupada says, you never see a picture of Krishna working a machine. Krishna is simply playing, and via all of his different agencies and expansions, and it's all going on. But that makes sense, that Krishna's got agents running everything, and it goes on smoothly. All right, so it's not sentiment or fanaticism, whatever. And I think we can end there. I wanted to say just one other thing. Because I really didn't touch much on that purport, other than the general picture. Just to say this, it describes how the inhabitants of the subterranean planets are enjoying more than the demigods. Does anyone remember why, according to the verse, the denizens of the heavenly planets, what is the difference between the happiness of and you can answer this one, Dravida, unless somebody else has the answer. The denizens of the heavenly planets have an inferior quality of happiness compared to the denizens of the subterranean heavenly planets. Anyone know why? Okay, that's good. But what it says here in the Bhagavatam is that in the subterranean heavenly planets, there's no disturbance. I mean, here we're always disturbed. Now, you would think, why? Okay, and it describes, because there's no disturbance, they're lulled into a false sense of happiness and security. They're just cruising along. Everything is groovy, or whatever you want to call it. They're enjoying, no disturbance. What is the advantage? Because ultimately they do die. And who knows where they go next? That's a hint. So what is the advantage of there being disturbances? Anybody here ever have any disturbance in their happiness? Huh? Well, that's the whole nature. It's constantly. What is the advantage? Because it describes here how they're lulled into a false sense of security, the denizens in the last purport we read. And therefore the merciful Vaishnavas want to wake up, you fool. So what is the advantage of the disturbances? They wake you up that, wait, all is not great. Prabhupada describes that with goats being slaughtered, that, you know, they're all in a line. I saw this. Where we used to go get produce in Detroit, right next it was an Armor Star meatpacking factory. Oh, it was horrible. You could hear the animals screaming inside of it. It was like Auschwitz. It was like, oh, it was nasty. You know, we had to drive by it every time, you know. But you see the animals coming out of those big trucks, you see those big, you know, cattle. And they were all being lines. Now, the cows were freaking. I can tell you the fact. The cows were. But you would see the pigs, they'd just be marching in. They'd all be in a line. No problem. The lambs just going in. No. So the fact that we become, that's where they're going. And the merciful Vaishnavas wake them up. And when there's disturbance, you think, wait a minute. Everything isn't just fine here. Can this be all there is? Why am I not, you know, Sanatana Goswami asking, everyone's calling me Panditji, everyone's calling me learned, but I don't know who I am, and I don't know why I'm suffering. That's real knowledge. So we can, in their little scope of the universe, some new friends, and the nursery rhyme, row, row, row your boat gently downstream. Anyone know the rest? Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. What if it's not a dream? What if you're not just rowing down the river and everything's cool? What if at the end there's a cliff and there's a waterfall and you got to take birth and go through the whole thing again? It's not row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Okay, we can end there. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhu.